Aloha and welcome to my first ever interview with the Fairy Congress logistics queen, Lindsey Swoop. I'm so excited to be here today. We're going to be talking about the Fairy and Human Relations Congress. And this is an event that has been going on for some time, I understand, and it was an in-person event. And along with a lot of the other events that are now have moved virtual for this year, this event is going to be virtual this year. And so we are here to help answer your questions. So make sure to drop those in the chat and also just kind of educate the community about what the Fairy Congress is all about. So my first question for you, Lindsey, is what do you mean by fairies? You know, who are these fairies and what's up with these creatures?
Well, so we use the term fairy because this event grew out of a fairy congress that was first held in England in the 1950s. So it's kind of the traditional name for nature spirits. And in our case, because we've been doing it so long, we do interact with all sorts of nature spirits, small and large, throughout the landscape. But the term fairy at this point in the title is just, it comes from the tradition, the English tradition. But we do mean nature spirits, really, of all kinds. So it can be connected with trees or flowers or rocks or mountains or rivers, the ocean.
Yeah. This really, I think this, when I hear that, I hear like this idea that, you know, everything has a spirit, right? And everything around us has this like presence and is alive. And so I really feel like to honor the fairies is kind of to honor like all of the nature creatures and the spirit of all living things in nature. So how long has the Fairy Congress been going on?
It's been going for 20 years on the physical plane. It also, on the fairy plane, it happened for about, I think, 30 years, from 1950 to 1985. And then there was a break, and then Michael Pilarski, who is the main founder, he heard about it from this woman in England who started it on the fairy plane. And so it's been happening for 20 years in Washington State, in a beautiful remote location up in the mountains.
Wow. Well, I sure hope that hopefully events, you know, get happening in real life sometime in the next few years. And, you know, I think one thing I want the audience to know about me is my background is in event production, and I've been doing, you know, in-person production. That was what I went to school for, and I'm super passionate about it. But I also work a lot in marketing and digital media. And so my journey has been in actually doing what I'm doing with you, Lindsey, right now, which is helping to navigate that transition between the in-person event and the virtual event, and really helping the audience to connect to a virtual event like they would in person. And I think that that's one of the challenges, but also one of the great joys of what I'm getting to do right now in my career is help people to kind of harmonize this idea of not just, you know, putting out a workshop video, but to really engage with the audience and really like connect, right? And how do we get to that point of really feeling connected? And so it sounds like that's what this event is about too, in essence, is actually connecting to nature and connecting to the spirit of fairies and you know, earth spirits. And so I love that's what you guys are all about.
And we're also about connecting with other humans, though. We're called a congress. It's not a conference. It's not a festival. It is a congress where everyone that comes is a delegate, and we all come with our own fairy and spiritual allies. So all of our allies get to meet, and we get to meet each other. And so it really is, because the human connections are also so nourishing, you know, as well as the spiritual connections.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I love the idea of, I actually had a friend of mine that works very closely with the fairies. And he mentioned to me one time when we were in this beautiful place in Sedona, Oak Creek, he mentioned he like was looking at me and he had this kind of look in his eye, you know, and I was going like, what's going on? And he was like, I really like your friends. Like it was like he was acknowledging that he could see my fairy and earth helpers, especially at this particular place. It was like a total, you know, it's kind of like the background of the stream we have going on. It had this kind of fairy-like essence. And, you know, I think that's a really interesting thing to think about, is just where have you been in your life that you would think that the fairies would come out and play. And I think that that can be sometimes a great place to find connection to those spirits. And I definitely think some of my community has a gift with actually being able to tap in and see these spirits. And so I'm curious if, you know, to throw you a wild card, I'm like curious, does the Fairy Congress help people to cultivate that ability to really tune in with the spirits?
Our approaches is we try to gather as many people as we can who have been communicating with fairies for many years, and they help, you know, those of us who haven't been communicating so much. So we're not about, you know, one specific teacher or lineage or tradition. It's more about getting as many people as we can to offer their perspective, because, you know, it's like any relationship. It's different, a little bit different for everybody.
Awesome. Well, tell me more about your role. What is it that you actually do? How did you get involved with this, and what inspired you to do this?
So the origin story is interesting. So I knew Michael Pilarski. He's a big permaculture. He's big in the permaculture world. So I bought this property out in the Methow Valley in Washington, and Michael had been there and he knew about it. And my goal in that the name of that property was Scalitude. And Scalitude is a Salish word that means when humans and nature are in harmony, the veils between the worlds dissolve and magic and beauty are everywhere. So that was my intent with the property. So there's one day I was living there all by myself. It was the end of the road. It's pretty much in the wilderness. And it was a dark, snowy February night. And I had this book from the library that said a quarter moon is a good time to give an offering to the fairies. And I said, oh, it's a quarter moon. I'm here by myself. I'm bored. I have nothing else to do. I'll go make an offering to the fairies. And I grew up in England, so I was already acquainted with the fairies to some degree. So anyway, I went out after dark, tromping through the snow, and I brought them an offering of some dried flowers and some milk and cake. And I just said, hi, fairies, I'm here. You know, this is my goal, to help humans and nature get along. And if you can help, that would be great. And then 2 days later, Michael calls me and he says he wants to hold this Fairy and Human Relations Congress, and he's looking for a venue or a site. And, you know, could he do it at my place? And I was kind of like, well, I think I have to. You know, seeing as I just made an offering to the fairies saying, please help.
Wow, that's so amazing. I love that kind of magic and synchronicity. And I actually, it's super interesting. Since I've been working with you, some similar type synchronicities have popped up, right? When you're working with the fairies and you're aware of them and you bring them into your perception, and then like other signs and symbols seem to abound and just kind of, you know, remind you that they're paying attention and they're listening and they love. I think what they like is how excited I get in the big grin. I think they like my dimples, because they like how excited I get when I notice those moments, right? When I'm, you know, thrilled. And I wanted to actually say hello. We've got some friends tuning in with us. We've got Joanne Marks saying hello, and we have Amanda from New Hampshire. We've got Mahala. I wonder if you know some of these friends.
Know some of those people.
We've got Joanne saying, well, humans nourishing humans for our fairy allies. And we've got Dwani from Santa Cruz. What a beautiful butterfly. She looks like a butterfly friend. We've got Ziti saying hello from Bellingham.
Right.
And Somebody said hello from oh, this must be Michael. He must be
Yes.
watching us because
All right.
he's on the. He said nice backdrop, so he likes our backdrop.
Right.
And
All right.
Sissy said hey there. So
All
what a
right.
beautiful community that we have. Tuning in with us, and Joanna. So I just wanted to acknowledge our beautiful group. It looks like you have a lot of wonderful friends,
Yeah.
and I'm going to, I'm curious here. What will this year's event look like in terms of, with it being online? How are people going to be able to get involved with this event? What's your community doing, and what's it going to look like for this year?
Well, we've tried to replicate the in-person event as much as possible. And normally it's a mix of circles, and a circle, it's something I didn't know what a circle really was until the Fairy Congress. So a circle is when your whole community gets together and you stand in a circle and you can see everybody and talk to everybody, and it's really a time when we all come together and build community. So we'll have circles. We're going to have small group sessions because for many people the magic of the Congress is actually the other people they meet and the connections and the conversations and realizing you're not alone in your, you're working with fairies in your outlook. So we'll have small group sessions, and then we will have workshops where we have the people with many years experience working with fairies or the nature realms, and they can share their wisdom. And we've also broken it up. So we're going to do 5 sessions through the weekend, 3 hours each, because we know you can't be on the computer too much, especially because we're all nature people. We all want to get outside.
Right.
So we start Friday evening, and actually we have a lovely concert to finish Friday evening with. A lovely man from Canada, beautiful. His music is kind of like will take you on a journey into the realms. And then we'll meet again Saturday morning, but then you have a break like for 4 hours in the middle of the day Saturday. So we're really hoping people will clear their calendars and take the time to go outside and connect with nature in those 4 hours. It's a sort of practice so that when we're together at the computer, you're learning and making the human connections, but then you have time to go be with nature and really integrate everything that we've learned. And then
Wow, I
we'll meet
love
again
that.
Saturday night, and we have a powerful ritual. So usually Saturday night at the Congress is sort of like the, I don't know, almost like a climax. It's just like, when we're all together and we're really focusing on connecting with the realms. And, it's often at dusk, and that's when the magic is the most palpable. So we figured out, we're so excited about the ritual we're going to do Saturday night. And then we meet again on Sunday, again, the same thing where we'll meet in the morning. And then there's time to go integrate during the day. And then the evening session will end with our normal closing circle where we kind of just make sure that, we bring everything back before.
Yeah,
Back to
bringing
the
people
world.
together for virtual networking as well
Mm-hmm.
as integrating
Mm-hmm.
the teaching and the learning outside in nature. And I think it's a really interesting thing too, where like they say there's a lot of talk in the ether about how 2020 is really this year of kind of going internal, and going deep into ourselves, as a lot of us are in isolation and have to kind of hang out, and it's like the universe has said go to your room, and I love that idea of being able to be in community and connect with other people that are interested in this, but also still having that space to kind of go and do what I would call this deep listening practice, where you're really tapping into the realm, the realm where the fairies can communicate, and opening those doors of perception to these beautiful beings that really want to I mean, my experience is they really want to help me and they want
Yeah.
to support me in my
Yes.
human journey, and they want to see me smile. They want to see
Hmm.
me make friends, and they want to see me supported. And I actually would say that it's that rainbow butterfly part of myself that sometimes I feel like is, it's like people assume or something because I like rainbows and I'm colorful and this like smiley personality that like I'm a kid, when I'm actually like almost 30 years old and like a professional working, running my own business. And I find that it's actually in these types of events when I meet people that are like me, who maybe they have that light childlike, approach to life, and they, are colorful beings and work with the fairies and work with these realms, but they also manage businesses and run organizations and, aren't just like, little kids playing at the park all day. But then there is like, that's why we do these types of things, is to play, and
Yes.
to take a break from work. And so
Yeah.
I think that that's super, super cool. And I'm really excited. I hope I can attend myself.
Yes.
We haven't
Yes. For
talked much
sure.
about that, but I'm like blocking out the weekend because I think
All
this year
right.
is my
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're
And
so excited about that.
yeah,
Yeah, because it's always been such a hurdle because we were in person in this gorgeous location in Washington, but it's quite hard to get to for anybody. It's like 4 hours from the closest airport. So it was really a limiting factor. So we are so excited now that, anybody can come
world.
from anywhere in the world. And
Yeah,
yeah. And we
you're
do feel
global.
all the fairies too are just so excited about the
I was getting
possibilities
that
here.
too. I was getting that too. I was kind of getting this, that the fairies are ready to go virtual and
Hmm.
global, and that they want to help us. They know that a lot of us are in isolation, and people are navigating really challenging, not having the money for food because they lost their job, and just really hard things right now. There's just, um, people like more than ever, I think is a great time for you to meet your fairy friends and connect
Yes.
to nature and the message that Pachamama, Mother Gaia, Great Spirit, whatever you call, whatever your name for it is. I think there's a lot of wisdom and messages
Mhm.
that they have for us, and taking that time to open our ears and to
Well, and they,
kind of set aside that time for them.
yeah, because they do want to support you. And that's actually a lesson that I've had to keep practicing because I do get focused on, oh, I want to help them. I want to, share my light. I want to offer my blessing because we take so much from nature already. But they do want to support you. And so I have had times, there's one time I specifically remember in a meditation where I was like, okay, I want to bless this being and I want to offer some light here and I want to do this. And I was like, okay, did I forget anybody? And they said, yes. And I was like, oh, who did I forget? And they said, you forgot to receive. And I was like, oh, and they, I just felt all these little shimmerings of light and blessing coming my way. And that was like, it was such a lovely surprise, but they do. And the other thing is, you mentioned about joy. They are all about joy. So if they can help us be in our joy, that just helps the whole world because joy, another important lesson I've learned, that joy is a formative force, that when you are in joy, it's so much easier to manifest a beautiful life. If you're sad and grumpy and, it's really hard to make magic happen and make a beautiful life. So the more that you can be in joy and allow them to help you feel that joy, it's like you just have more love and light to share and the magic radiates.
Totally, totally. And I actually, one thing I noticed recently is that when I'm feeling the most joy, is a lot of times when I'm dancing or moving.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
bring this up because in some of the images of the past fairy congresses, I see people like what looks like they're twirling or dancing around together. Will there be like activities that are more like physical and workshops and talks and things like that, or what types of workshops are there?
Well, usually the circles are where we do the song and dance. And we do have in each circle, we definitely have some singing. And there's some, especially the morning songs, are really upbeat and will get people moving. So, yes, there will be times to move within that. But then
So
that's also why we got a big break during the day to
awesome. So that's
get it
yeah.
moving.
I had a question about that because I was like, I want to dance. I want to play. That's so much of what a festival or a gathering for me is all about, is getting to play together and just share the joy. Cultivating and getting to that place of joy, and then just like it's like it becomes this kind of contagious, right? It's like just seeing another person smile, and that's one thing. Everyone's got to wear a mask out and about right now, so like with this virtual event, we can take our mask off, we can smile at each other, we can share that love, that magic, and hopefully cultivate that and bring that back, right? Because I feel like it's kind of like, how long are we going to have to hide our smiles? It's kind of like this magic question that's kind of lingering in the ethers, and so I'm curious, what is a good way to relate or to call in or cultivate a conversation with the fairies in your home or your neighborhood, or if people are looking to connect to the fairies right now, right before the event, is there a way they can start to cultivate that relationship before the
Definitely.
conference?
Yeah, a really good way is to have a little fairy altar somewhere in your house or outside your house. And we actually have a sweet little video. It's up on our YouTube channel of one of our community members, Annie Clark. She has such a strong connection to the fairies. So, I mean, your fairy altar can be very simple. An altar, it means to rise up. So it is nice to have it, just sort of a little bit above the ground. But just to have some special plants or rocks or really it's just something that shows your intent of connecting with the fairies. But they do like beautiful things. So I'm a rock collector. So I usually have an arrangement of special rocks that I've picked up in different places. But it's partly, communicating your intent to connect is so important, but then also having a physical place that kind of shows them, yes, I see you, I honor you. And then it creates a gateway or a portal for connection. So that's one great way. But another great way to get back to the idea of singing. They love singing, so you can sing to the trees. That's a really lovely way to connect. But then make sure that you listen afterwards, because sometimes they want to
Yeah,
sing back to you.
yeah. Make sure to pause to wait for the response. Yeah, that's a really interesting thing that I've noticed a lot more people starting to open up to and acknowledge, is that even before we consume a plant or a food, it's like there's this consciousness that food has to communicate to us, like, hey, can I take you, or can I harvest you for nourishment, and have that conversation with nature. And I think doing that, just like you said, cultivating intention with your
Yeah.
practices, and as you're singing, thinking to yourself, I'm doing this for the fairies, and as an offering to the fairies. I really, really love that. I notice, like, all I have to do is think about them.
Mm-hmm.
All I have to do is just have them in my mind and in my heart, and kind of like, what are they doing right now? Where are they? Who are they singing to? Just having them on in my mind and in my heart seems to get them kind of showing me,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I am here in this way.
Yes.
So that's amazing. Well, so people can sing to them, they can create an altar. Those are two really wonderful, wonderful things. And I would recommend creating an altar and singing to just about anybody. Altars are really beautiful for just having a place, like I have an altar set up in this room, and I just really love just like going over to it. You know, I just feel good when I stand near it. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just a good energy zone for me. And if
Yes.
I'm having a moment, I can kind of go over there and I can kind of just look at my crystals and my rocks on it, and I can kind of just tune into that beautiful energy. So,
Get my.
so I wonder if you, so say somebody's doing one of these practices. Oh, wow, look at that.
This is
That is
my
so
little desk
cool.
altar. Yes.
Wow. So
And
I
then I
wonder,
have
did you
this
make
little.
that at the Fairy
No, I didn't.
Congress?
I
Oh,
actually found this at Goodwill, and I
wow.
was like, oh, should I get that? I don't know. Do I really need that? What am I going to do with it? But then it just called to me so much. It's like, how can I not bring that home?
That's
So,
perfect. Yeah, I love
yes.
that. So yeah, you can find little fairy things,
Yes.
upcycle. I love upcycling, and I do a lot of jewelry making. And
Oh,
I was actually
nice.
just thinking like, oh, they might like it if I like put a bead. They would maybe
Hmm.
take a bead and go put a bead in their little house. So what advice do you have for people who are cultivating that conversation, and then maybe they feel like they're connecting with a fairy, or a fairy's there with them, and like what should they say to the fairy? What if they
Well, so yeah, this has come up a couple times. That people have asked me what to do, because I think what often happens is you get so freaked out, you run away, and then you're like, "Damn, why did I run away? I actually want to connect to
you're
fairies."
like, oh my
And
god, we're here.
yeah, yeah, because I mean, unfortunately, I think it's kind of a little bit been programmed into our psyches that fairies are bad, or these nature spirits. Because of the whole Christian thing, it was like, because thousands of years ago, we did work in harmony with nature, but then it was like, no, nature is bad, and God up in the sky that's, you want to always just be thinking up, and everything that is down on the earth is bad and evil. And so it's kind of been programmed into our psyche. So I think the first thing is to recognize that. And so when you have that fear come up, say, okay, that's an old program. I can release that program. I don't want to run that program anymore. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is always to ground and center, to then come into your light. And this is where I think a daily practice, meditation practice, comes in. That you practice grounding and centering, so that when something happens, you can come back to your center um, really quickly and easily. And then you can engage, because yeah, you do want to be in your own, in your strength, in your light, when you engage with the fairies. And a couple interesting things it's happened to me a couple times when I'm meeting with fairies. Well, actually, here's two things. Some fairies, they want to know who your ancestors are. Like, so if you can call on your ancestors, then the fairies are, okay, I know you're connected to those people that we know thousands of years ago. So, it's like they giving them sort of a context, or a reference, if you will. But then the other thing, what I've had happen, is that fairies have said, show me your true self. In the other words, like, this physical body is not who we are. That, this body is kind of a house for our soul. So the first time that happened, like, show me your true self, I had to then feel into, like, okay, what does my true self look like? And it was just kind of a little meditative exercise. And so then I showed them a picture, and then they would engage with me further. But so, yeah, a couple
Wow,
points there.
that actually was one of the most fascinating pieces of what you've shared today, for me at least, because I totally resonate with that idea of having this other presence of like what I look like what is my
Mm-hmm.
goddess, what does my inner goddess look like?
Mm-hmm.
And not this, 3D trudging through 3D meat suit, I've heard some people call it. And I also really, really appreciate this idea of people being startled or not knowing how to necessarily respond, um, because they may not have ever had that type of experience. And how do we cultivate a sense of deep peace and not fear? Because fear is just so much of what I think we're battling right now as a collective consciousness, and just in, you know, our human existence and evolution, and moving past, canceling, you know, cancel clear the fear, and cultivate the joy, the knowingness of divine light. And that's, I think of the sparkle, glowing sparkle, firefly magic, and it's really, the more that I trust, it's this part of it is trust. It's like, know that as long as you're in peace and love and showing up in that space of peace and love, that's the vibe you're going to be attracting. So if you're afraid, yeah, you might attract some, you know, less than high vibrational energy. But if you really are coming into it with love and peace, you know, that's what you're going to be met with. And so I wanted to acknowledge some of our friends that are watching us. We've got, you know, let's see here. We've got Donnie said, joy is such a blessing to feel and share together. And this person said, I am learning to see smiles through the heart, not the senses of sight. I love that idea of really tapping into our heart center. This person said, remember that the Fae are also on their own evolutionary path. What a crazy, but not so crazy idea. Like, hey, you know, and that's kind of what I was thinking about with their passion and interest in going global and virtual with you guys this year. It's like, that's part of their evolution. And they probably, my sense is that they know that the closer relationship we can cultivate, the better we're both going to be, and that we can help each other. Donnie said, yes, a tool for remembering who we are, totally. And this person said, I love the idea of connecting with and showing my true self. And I think that was one of the most powerful things that you've shared, is showing up in authenticity is the way to show up when we're working with these realms. And I am so much more excited. I was already excited, but I am so much more excited just hearing all of this, you know, for this. I wanted to say, hey, if the audience has any questions, you know, feel free to drop those in the chat. We've got quite a few people watching us right now. We'd love to answer any questions that you have live, and we would be happy to pin those. And I have a question about, like, is there a way that I can show them that I got the message? Like, if I feel like I'm getting a message from them, is there a way I can, like, how would they want me to reward them, or say something like, hey, I received that memo you got me. How can I say thank you to them in a way that they will receive?
Well, offerings are another really great way and traditional way to connect with the fairies. And, you know, I was talking before about singing, and that can be an offering. But also, you know, so other traditional things are like, you usually want to offer something that has something of the human essence. So something that you've baked, or some food that you've made, or, you know, or if you're crafting, you know, you might like make a little piece of jewelry for them, you know, with the intent of giving it out. So they love offerings. But really, you know, I always think of it as it's a relationship. So any relationship, communication, respect, and consideration, they go a really long way. So in terms of like how to tell them that you got the message, you might want to ask them, like, what would you like from me in exchange?
Yeah, ask them what they want as a thank you. I love that. I love that idea. And I'm curious, okay, so we talked about what they like. Is there anything that they don't like, or like things that you shouldn't say or shouldn't do that would be in dissonance? And I typically would never bring up the word dissonance because I'm all about harmony and love and joy. But I'm curious, like, is there a certain smell that they don't like, or foods that they don't, you know, what's the what would you spray yourself with for an anti-fairy spray?
Well,
Just to like
I'd
make
say
sure I'm not doing that, you know?
they don't like things that are harmful to nature. Like they don't like plastic. There is a
Okay.
tradition that they don't like metal, but I found that there's some leeway with that one. Like they brought me this metal button. I found this oops, outside by my garden. It has a little flower, and that's one of those things that just kind of appeared there one day. So I took that as a gift. And the things they don't like, I mean, they really, they don't like that sense of dissonance, you know,
Right.
anything
Yeah.
that feels harsh or violent or that's harmful.
I was curious. So you know what? One of the reasons why I asked that is because I have two dogs. My partner has two large dogs. And I was like, are they afraid of other animals or dogs, or do they hide when they hear a dog bark or something like that?
I mean, I think some animals they get along with better than others. I mean, I have two dogs too, and I know there's one of my dogs when I used to live at Scalitude, he was totally tuned into all the fairies there. He
You
was
could
like,
tell.
yeah, yeah. And sometimes, oh, and he also had a thing with ravens, you know, and ravens are a very magical bird, but the ravens would come down and swoop at the dog, and the dog would run after, you know, they played a game, but it doesn't, sometimes from our human perspective, it is hard to tell what's a game and what's not, but.
Okay, well, I'm just going to acknowledge Sissy said, I sing to them as my offering. So
Singing is good.
yeah, the singing seems like a great thing. So Lindsey, how should people get involved with this? How do people sign up? Where do they go? What's the best way to connect with the Fairy Congress? And is there anything else you want to add for our audience before we sign
Well,
off for today?
the most direct way is to go to our website, Fairy Congress. It's FAIRY Congress.com. We do, of course, have a presence on Facebook too. There's an event page, and we have a page and a community page. But all of the information is on Fairy Congress. And we also have lots of videos there. And Kevin made a beautiful documentary for us. There's a half-hour documentary. It's on Vimeo, but the link is on Fairy Congress. So if you want to learn more, that's a lovely introduction. And there are also some shorter videos there. There's lots of pictures. So that's the most direct way.
Awesome. And you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, and you know what's really interesting is I am picking up some out of my periphery. I don't know if you saw me, like I was going like that. I felt like I was like, is something flying through the room? I felt like I might have a fairy in the room with me right now, and I'm kind of going, would that be normal? You know?
Yeah. I often see them out of the corners of my eyes. Yeah.
We're talking about them. And you know what the fairy just said, because my room's not really messy, but it's a little bit of a disarray right now. The fairy just said, you need to tidy up in here. So that's one thing that the fairies want me to share, actually, is what's coming through is they ask that the space that you create for yourself to attend the Congress be of loving and care, right? So create a little fairy nest for yourself as a safe space to commune with them and to learn about them. That's what they really want. They just asked me to mention that. So show up with your best, most tidy and lovely self, and really tap into the joy, and they will just show right up.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Great. Well, it was so great talking to you today. I really hope that this helps spread the message about the Congress, January 15th, 16th, and 17th, right?
Yep. Yes.
All right. So everybody go check out fairycongress.com And if you have any questions for me, you can reach me. My name's Brielle Bataille. My Instagram's Butterfly Brielle. My business is called Manifestation Media, manifestationmedia.com. I help people launch virtual and in-person events when they're happening. And I'd love to connect with the fairies and the community. So please feel free to reach out to me and Lindsey as well. I'm sure she would be happy to answer any questions that you have about the upcoming Congress. And we look forward to sharing more with you all soon.
Yeah. Thank you, Brielle.
Bye.
Bye.